Let's get into our Wednesday wrangle now with Late Debate co-host Liz Storer joining me on the desk and columnist and broadcaster Justin Smith in Melbourne. Great to talk to you guys again. Let's get your take on things, Justin. At the moment, a lot of focus on the cost of living. Jim Chalmers saying that he's not going to spend any more money easing people's needs. But, you know, as I keep pointing out with all this renewable energy stuff, they're doing everything they can to make our energy and therefore everything that relies on it more expensive.
Yeah, well, look, we're going to have to separate the two things a little bit, though, aren't we? I mean, let's be fair, Nickham. Having renewable energy is eventually going to be the only way we go. Now, the way we get there is, you know, you and I and, and Liz, we're going to differ on the direction that we take and how fast we do it. I actually think one of the biggest problems is with renewables is we've set a little bit too much of a target because things come up, wars happen, the economy changes, and if we lock ourselves into that target, it becomes too political then, and we do end up spending way too much money, and we do end up losing a few hearts and minds, and people go off renewables. We've got to keep heading in that direction, though, surely.
Well, a bit of a target, Liz. This is the point. We've already destroyed our energy grid, and we're wanting to go even harder.
Yeah, you just said, Justin, we do end up spending a little bit too much money. Last October, Labor's budget committed an unprecedented $25 billion to their clean energy dream, and $20 billion of that was just for rebuilding the grid. Perfectly good grid, but not built for their jolly renewables. So while we're still shipping all the coal off to China and other countries, which is going to be burnt elsewhere anyway, we have seemingly somehow convinced enough Australians that because it's not burning here and we're bleeding through every orifice, paying for incredibly painful energy prices, still being burned elsewhere. We're not reducing emissions. It is simply the politicians looking a bit better on paper because those emissions now no longer belong to Australia. It is sheer madness. And then they want to tell us, Chris, after they've spent all this money, don't have enough money for nuclear, though. I mean that would be astronomical.
Don't have enough money for any work.
It is baseload power. It's a sure thing. You're spending so much money anyway. Give us nuclear. It's emissions free. It gets you to your green dream.
It works. We know it works.
This explains, because we all know it's about the social agenda underneath it all. I like to joke. You know why China doesn't care about all this zero emissions nonsense? Because they already have communism.
Look, you've made a complete mess of my rundown now. Let's keep on with this. Because, Justin, the point is this report came out today from the net zero mob, and these are all in on it. These are people who are all in for this transition to renewables. They say it's going to cost this country $1.5 trillion, $1,500 billion to build out all these renewable technologies. And on top of that, we need to build a heaps more gas peaking plants to fill it in, even because when the wind doesn't blow and the sun isn't shining, even though we've covered thousands of kilometres of this country with this stuff. I mean, they're essentially just pointing out how this stuff has just never been done and how, frankly, impossible it is.
Well, Gio, let me ask you a question. Let me throw it back at the both of you then. And look, I don't think we should be ruling out nuclear, by the way. I think we should be having a damn good hard look at it. I actually agree with what you're saying, Liz. But do the two of you believe that eventually we are going to run out of fossil fuels and that we're going to bugger up this planet unless we find a better way of doing it, and that we should have renewables? I mean, do you actually believe that, or do you just want to go down the path of fossil fuels forever and just see what happens to Earth?
Do you actually believe, though, Justin, that nuclear doesn't knock all of that out of the ballpark? Because Australia is also we have the largest uranium deposits in the world.
Hang on.
Justin,
you're diverting away from here.
No, I'm not diverting
I'm not saying rule out nuclear power. I'm asking the two of you.
Why do we need to punish?
Do you believe that we should be looking at renewables?
Why, when we can just go nuclear? It generates a heap of energy in a great many nations across the globe.
Yeah, there's always going to be some renewables. Hydroelectricity's been around for a long while, and that's always going to be around. When the technology is there, it's going to work. But you say we're going to run out of fossil fuels. All right, in 300 years' time, 400 years' time, we run out of fossil fuels? Let's hope some technology has been improved in the meantime. We don't have to do this in 20 years, mate. We've only been using fossil fuels.
To run out of them.
We've only been using fossil fuels for 150 years. We want to change everything in a decade.
I don't think we should be looking too hard at the targets. I agree with you. Look, I'll tell you something about the climate change debate, and I have felt this way for years. I hate, with a passion, I hate zealots on both sides. You know, when before you were playing the Spanish leader getting on the bike and, only riding 100 metres to get to the press conference, I hate that kind of garbage. But I also hate the zealots on the other side. If we can get all the zealots off the table and we can start getting into the middle here where we say, listen, we're going to actually bugger this planet unless we do something right. Now, it might be nuclear, it might be wind farms, it might be electric cars. We've got to look at all of this. We can't rule it out and we can't keep going down the same path. The two of you are smart enough to know that.
But this is the point, Justin, really, to be fair, there are no zealots on the other side of this, because the hardest line on the other side of this debate is just we should keep coal and gas going until we've got something decent to replace it. That's hardly an extreme position.
Indeed.
Oh, you're kidding me. There are no zealots on this. Let me just point to this.
I've just
Tony
given you the
Abbott,
other position.
who I like personally very much. Tony Abbott is only a couple of prime ministers ago, and he did not believe that climate change was real. The most powerful man on this planet up until a couple of years ago was Donald Trump, and he said that climate change was a hoax. Now, if you can't look at those two and see them as zealots on the other side, the far right, I don't know who is a zealot then.
I'm not going to defend Trump's various ramblings, but you won't produce a quote of Tony Abbott saying that. That's not his position on climate change.